Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Futurum Tech Webcast. I'm your host, Daniel Newman, Principal Analyst, Founding Partner at Futurum Research. Excited about this episode. It is part of our interview series, and we are going to have Marvell Technologies, a absolute meteor right now in the semiconductor space and the tech space, playing in all kinds of interesting secular areas from cloud to 5G to automotive and more. Excited to have Nigel Alvares. He's the Vice President of Solution Marketing, and he's going to join us following the company's Industry Analyst Day, IA Day, a day where the company presented a whole lot of information on their product services and where they are heading. Now, before I bring Nigel on the show, quick disclaimer, this show is for information and entertainment purposes only. And while we will be talking to executives from publicly traded companies and about those companies, please do not take anything that I say or that our guests say as investment advice. Thanks, Marvell, for bringing Nigel and making him available to chat with me today. And without further ado, Nigel, welcome to the Futurum Tech Webcast. How are you?
Hey, Daniel. Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, excited to have you here. We've had a lot of chances to talk the last few weeks. You've had a ton of stuff going on. Now, some questions. Mostly, we're going to talk about your Industry Analyst Day because that was a pretty big day, a lot of announcements. Always exciting to hear what is going on. And like I said, Meteor rocket ship, the company has been on absolute fire, and we're going to talk about that too. Now, since I think, it's been a while since I've had you on, or I'm not sure if you've been on this show. So for our audience and everybody out there, why don't you just do a quick introduction and talk a little bit about the work you do at Marvell Technologies?
Yeah, so at Marvell, I lead the solutions marketing, which really consists of working with all the business units and bringing their positioning, messaging in a holistic manner, targeting our key end markets, which is really focused on data infrastructure, spanning cloud, data centers, 5G carrier, enterprise networking, and automotive. So I work very closely with them on their strategies, their go-to-market, and product launches and strategies. So that's my main role.
That's main roles. You need to put an S at the end of that because you're carrying a lot, and that's great because there's a lot to carry right now at the company. So you heard me mention company momentum. I've been tracking. You guys have had a series of pretty interesting moments over the past several weeks. You had an investor day. You had an earnings result that was kind of absolute blowout, I guess is the word I'll use. You might have seen my coverage on Market Watch where I kind of alluded to the fact that Marvell is no longer a quote unquote also ran in the semiconductor space. It really has become a company that if you're in this space and you're looking for the fastest growth and most exciting plays, hard not to be in Marvell. And then, of course, the industry day is where you sort of went over the bridge from all the financial and all the money, and you went over to the underpinnings of the money. And this is where you spend your time, the products and services that develop all that interest and excitement and drive that share price up. But talk a little bit about what you're seeing in your role, just the overall company momentum and the business growth.
Yeah, it's been an amazing transformation we've experienced. When I joined the company about 5 years ago, we were really in the process of reinventing the company, right, and transforming the company, and really put a strategy together to focus on data infrastructure. And our leadership team, led by Matt Murphy, really took a very careful and very focused path to put us in this position we are in today, right? So we were really selective and deliberate on our strategy, very calculated on organic investments, our divestitures, and then the acquisition strategy. And that really has put us in a very strong position today. And it's credit to all the employees to go through this transformation and work relentlessly. And as you just highlighted, our Q3 results that we announced last week were really, I would call it a watershed moment for the company. We delivered record revenues of 1.21 billion, which is really 61% year over year growth and 13% sequential growth. And that was led by growth across all our markets. So it's been a phenomenal run, and we're just getting started, is our opinion. The world is really going more and more data driven, and we're right in the middle of it, right, with the backbone of that infrastructure.
Yeah, and let's just break that down a little bit. You can definitely check out more of this on my earnings coverage, and I'll put that in the show notes. But you kind of broke down your revenues, data center, enterprise, carrier, automotive, 41%, 20%, 18%, and 6%. So you're in these four sort of secular areas that are all have a lot of momentum. And there's crossover, but you saw your cloud business 109% growth. You saw your enterprise business 56% growth. You saw carrier grow by 28%. And then automotive had a huge growth, 114%. So while a smaller business, really, really tremendous growth. And the automotive space has so much momentum right now, and Marvell is one of those companies that's playing an important role, but not necessarily always getting credit for it. So let's pivot over to the Industry Analyst Day, though itself. This was a day that you really played a big pivotal role. Chance to get in front of a number of the leading analysts that are covering the technology. Tell them your story. Set that day up for me. What were you guys so excited about? What was the focus and the outcomes you guys were looking for?
Yeah, I think this is our third analyst day, industry analyst day, and it's been a journey for us. As similar to our transformation as a company, we're on a transformation from a marketing perspective as well, right? We weren't very public in the past with our strategies, our products, our roadmaps. So we've been working on that over the last 3 years, and I would say over the last year we made a lot of progress. We acquired two big acquisitions, Inphi and Innovium, to really accelerate our strategy and complement the pieces we've put in place from an organic and acquisition perspective. And this Industry Analyst Day was really meant to focus on how those assets and companies have come into the fold to give us the most comprehensive portfolio for data infrastructure. And when we say data infrastructure, I talked about 5G, enterprise networking, data centers, and automotive. But there's a big trend and dynamic happening right now where all these data infrastructure markets are converging and leading into the cloud. And those two acquisitions we made this past year were really focused on the cloud side of things. Inphi with the Electro Optics, where they're best in class, leading the charge, and Innovium with a cloud optimized switch portfolio. And now, if you put those pieces under the umbrella of Marvell with our storage, our security, and our compute product lines, we have the industry's broadest and most complete portfolio for this dynamic of the cloud era and the data era that's actually going to lead us to the intelligence era with artificial intelligence going on. But it's all leading into the cloud world. And what's surprising to a lot of folks that they don't realize, not every cloud is unique. They're not built and architected similarly. Each of these clouds actually are specializing and optimizing for different services and different capabilities to give their customers. And this is driving a phenomena that we call cloud optimized silicon. And we're uniquely positioned with all these assets and products that we're developing. So that was a big theme of our industry analyst day.
Yeah, so kind of a couple things just for everyone out in the audience. You mentioned two big acquisitions, Inphi and Innovium. One was really all about optics and networking and high speed, and then the second one was really all about optimizing for cloud scale, which was Innovium. And the Inphi one not only was big, but I think it was the biggest acquisition ever done by Marvell, if I believe somewhere around 10 billion. So that was a really big move, but they both are because one was going to really accelerate the company's story for working with these hyperscale cloud providers. And so as you mentioned and you sort of alluded to in what you said is about, cloud specific or cloud optimized is you're hearing different things both being done. A lot of things you're probably, as if you're an enterprise, you're hearing about is optimization that's being done at the services layer. So you're hearing about things like network oriented instances, or you're hearing things about storage oriented instances, or you're hearing things about security. And underneath that, there is silicon, and that silicon is enabling that. So when you're sort of hearing about this new instance that you can spin up that's really all about optimizing for data or optimizing for storage, what you're not hearing about is a company like Marvell, and this is where all the growth is coming from, is providing that optimized silicon to a number of these hyperscale growth providers or to these data center providers that are wanting to build out compute and capabilities to be able to deliver that. So hopefully that just reiterates what Nigel, what you were saying there. So what I was hoping you could do also is just kind of break it down because I'm a big trends guy. I like to talk about secular trends. I mentioned automotive early on, super exciting growth area, but you guys are in a number of them. For instance, you guys are playing in 5G, you're playing in cloud and cloud, and then of course, like I said, you're playing in automotive. So maybe just do a little breakdown for me of some of the exciting areas that you focused on at Industry Analyst Day for those different areas.
Yeah, so let's start with 5G. So 5G, there's a lot of hype and discussion in the marketplace. And what's interesting about it, it's still in the early innings. China and APAC, Korea and Japan really led the charge of 5G a couple of years ago. And now you see the rest of the world, North America, Europe, catching up. And that's been a big tailwind to our business as we're enabling key partners like Nokia and Samsung who are providing the infrastructure equipment for these companies. Now, the other dynamic that's occurring with 5G is the 5G capabilities and features are enabling new types of services like private 5G for industrial manufacturing, for telemedicine. And that actually tailors back to my earlier point of everything leading back to the cloud, because the cloud, now you have this term called virtualized RAN, where you take a generic server and you virtualize it and provide RAN services. And why you want that is to have elasticity for demand, right? So when you have a pop-up going up at a stadium where there's a lot of people and you're doing all these types of services, you want to turn on the RAN capacity, right? Now, what's cool about that is Marvell's RAN technology, and this is baseband and compute technology from the Octeon DPU product line, has been powering traditional RANs for over a decade. And what we're seeing is folks in the cloud are looking to leverage our RAN technology to build virtualized RAN infrastructure with accelerator cards. And at Industry Analyst Day, we spoke about what we're doing there and why our solution complements, be it ARM or x86 servers with accelerated RAN capabilities. That's a big dynamic we're seeing right now, and it's going to take years to play out for vRAN. But what we're excited about is you're seeing the design win activity, you're seeing the ecosystem spawn up, and I think that's a great thing on the 5G side. Now, switching gears, or anything you want to add on that, or ask me on that,
No,
Dan?
I think you hit it on the head. Let's jump into automotive because I think that's an area a lot of people are pretty excited about.
Yeah, now automotive, as you highlighted, has been a huge growth driver for us. This last quarter we surpassed 140 million annualized run rate revenue, which is significant for us. And to date, we've solely been supplying chips for automotive Ethernet. So inside these vehicles, a lot of people talk about autonomous vehicles, software-defined vehicles. There's a network in these cars. Traditionally, it's been a very proprietary connections between sensors and the infotainment and all those different pieces. But as you start moving to this more autonomous and more software-defined vehicle, they're moving to a standard network, and that standard is Ethernet. And Marvell's been investing over the last 5 years in automotive Ethernet and have gotten significant design wins. And we're connecting when you hear people like NVIDIA or Intel talk about their compute engines, we're connecting those compute engines to the sensors, to the other elements. And last week, as we announced the industry's first camera to Ethernet bridge. Now you can take a camera video and put that on Ethernet network. And that's part of our Bright Lane brand that we launched last week. So this has been a significant growth driver. And when I talk about software-defined vehicles, that's a term that's just starting to emerge. But think of when you buy a vehicle, you get certain features that come with it. Traditionally, the vehicle hasn't changed, but now with this software-defined paradigm, where you have compute elements in the car, you'll be able to actually get new services and new features as they come to market. So that's another connection back to the cloud, where the cloud will be giving you the services or the features, and you download, just like a smartphone, how we download apps on a smartphone. think of your vehicles becoming like that in the future, where you'll be having apps and new features. So that's super exciting because, again, it goes back to what I started off, the convergence of cloud, 5G, and automotive, and our technologies tying that all together. So super excited about that. And last point on this, we announced our first custom compute design win for the Bright Lane. So that's where we took our compute engines and worked with an OEM to actually develop a custom solution. And why you say custom? People want to differentiate. They don't want to buy off the shelf components. They want to differentiate and add value and control their destiny. So that's a new paradigm and a new growth engine for the company as we move forward as this custom compute in automotive.
Yeah, and to be clear, some of what you were suggesting is starting to become available in what are kind of considered to be these disruptive vehicles, right? I mean, you're seeing how, like, if you've driven a Tesla, the experience that people, mostly like, but that people have gotten really accustomed to with apps and real time updating, and you turn in your car one day and then you do an update, you turn it back on, and it's like a computer. Well, after you update it, you see a new feature, a new application available, a new service. I mean, this is what the future of the car is going to be like. It's going to be like your mobile device. It's going to be like your laptop. You update it, and the more connected it is, the more high speed it's connected. We're going to see that going from something you do in an update to something that's just literally going to be happening as you're driving. A new service will come up, a new feature, a map is going to reload and change. I mean, we're already kind of seeing little services like as we're, people are reporting traffic or accidents in real time, and how that already can change a mapping, the information and services. And this is going to be driven by edge. This is going to be driven by real time data. This is going to be driven by AI, of course, onboard processing capabilities. You're going to see so much more of this, but all the networking and connectivity is everything in terms of actually making those things happen.
Absolutely spot on, Daniel.
Good. I'm glad when I get it right. So let's end up talking about the cloud. There's a couple of bigger things that I noticed. You talked about switching, optics, photonics, storage. Why don't you just give me kind of the whole rundown? Because cloud is, of course, a huge trend that I think Marvell is not necessarily even as much credit as you have been getting. Doesn't get enough credit for the role you're playing in that space.
Yeah, and I think this one is an interesting one, right? We all know the cloud's growing gangbusters. You've seen all the public announcements from those companies, and their infrastructure is about providing services and the capabilities to do more and more, right? And what that does and drives from an infrastructure requirement perspective is more bandwidth, more compute, more storage, and then security to keep everything, cool, right? Nothing, no vague or rogue type of stuff going on, which is critical going forward. And Marvell has been providing the key building blocks for each of those, starting with the Electro Optics we acquired from Inphi. Inphi has been innovating in this area for the last decade and has a leadership position with each of the cloud hyperscalers in the marketplace. And this is really for connectivity inside the data center and outside the data center. What people don't realize is, Daniel, you and I are generating data right now. That data is going into the cloud, and in the cloud, they're actually analyzing that data to create more data. We call it metadata or data about data, right? And that's actually driving more and more data inside the data center. So the actual bandwidth required inside the data centers is growing exponentially, and that's driving a ton of infrastructure requirements. AI being another key driver of that, where they're trying to figure out, hey, Daniel likes that team, so I'm going to serve that ad to him or serve that service to him, right? So that's driving a lot of us, and the Electro Optics is playing the key piece of the connectivity. Storage, as you can imagine, you have to store all this ton of data, right? And there's high capacity storage where you have your pictures and my pictures that we're looking at maybe periodically. So they go into a more cold storage type of element where we're providing HDD controllers. And we are proud to announce this week we shipped our fifth billionth controller, 5 billion HDD controllers, right?
5 billionth.
Yeah,
Just pause there. 5 billion.
yeah.
I'll take 5 billion pennies to have that.
And that's a remarkable accomplishment for Marvell. And that's what people don't realize. This company was founded on storage. That's what actually got the company on the map. And then we've evolved to grow into all these different areas. So really proud of our storage team on those innovations they're driving and continue to drive. Along those same lines in storage, we're also doing SSD controllers. It was a business I managed when I joined Marvell. And in that area, we're doing do-it-yourself SSDs, where the cloud makers can take our controller technology, collaborate with us, and then roll out storage solutions that are optimal for their infrastructure and optimizing what they can give to their client base, right? As you highlighted earlier, their customer base wants different types of optimizations and services. So that's another area we've been really innovating. And then last but not least is been the custom side of this business, right? Where we've actually taken all these different pieces and worked with each of these cloud makers to develop custom optimized solutions using our standard IP blocks, as well as taking their IP blocks and maybe third-party IP blocks and putting together an optimized solution for their infrastructure. So a lot of momentum in that business that's driving our growth and revenue today. But more exciting is actually new design wins that are going to drive future revenues in the next 2 to 3 years.
It's one of the luxuries of being a provider to the provider. When you're providing, and they're growing and the demand is growing and the overall TAMs are growing. And that's probably one of the things that I thought weighed in my opinion about how there's a pretty significant long tail of trajectory for the companies, because you're attaching and you're not just winning based upon some sort of cyclical or momentary trend. Like cloud is not momentary. Everybody wants to look at that in a kind of, I love when people are talking about, cloud market share. It's like, look, everybody can grow because the cloud is growing so much. And of course, the definition of cloud is changing. 5G is still in pretty early days. It's not at all in its latest days. I mean, you're still talking about, despite the fact that now most of us probably have access to a 5G device. If you're, in the US in any major market, and you upgrade, you may very well be on a 5G device. But the whole application, when you're talking about 5G, fixed 5G, connectivity, 5G connected vehicles, 5G, always connected PCs, all the different things that are going to tout the reliable throughput of 5G. We're still in the early days. Automotive, we're super early days for the automotive connected vehicle trend. We just think we're not because we read about the Teslas and Rivians and Lucids. That's a very small percentage of vehicles. And even all the design wins we're hearing about next generation ADAS and next generation telematics, these are 3, 5, 7-year design pipeline wins where, yes, companies have been selected to provide silicon that's going to change these vehicles, but you're talking about models in 25 and 27 and 29, because that's how far in advance. So there's still a lot going on, a lot of opportunity, and of course, a lot of growth. By the way, I shared something the other day with the Intel Mobileye announcement. I think there's a stat out saying now that the BOM on a vehicle in the next decade, by 2030, 20% of the cost is going to be semiconductors.
Yeah, no, I saw that, and
Right.
it's definitely happening. I can tell you right now, what we shared at IA Day was we have design wins for our Automotive Ethernet that spans $5 to $10 for, let's call it a high volume type of vehicle for just Ethernet connectivity switches and PHYs. And then if you go to the next generation automotive kind of companies that are got a greenfield architecture, our spend of automotive design wins is actually content anywhere from $50 to $100. So you can actually see that trend as you start to move to these new architectures. The semiconductor content is definitely going to be a big percentage of the BOM.
Absolutely, which is exciting and something that Marvell, among others, will have a huge opportunity to benefit from. All right, so let's wrap this up. Overall, as you're looking ahead, what do you see? What should the market, the industry, your partners be most excited about around Marvell?
Yeah, I think what we're super excited is the data continues to grow and the need for infrastructure continues to grow. And we believe society to advance needs better infrastructure. And we're so super excited to be working in an open collaborative manner with the key players to enable this future, right? And as we highlight in this whole conversation, be it automotive, be it 5G, I didn't even touch upon the borderless enterprise. What we mean by borderless enterprise is now not everyone's restricted to going into the office to do work, right? We're working from anywhere, and that's starting to create new types of architectures for the enterprise. So each of these pieces is growing and is exciting. And then to me, the biggest thing I see from a Marvell perspective is they're converging together and having all these different building blocks gives our partners and the whole ecosystem opportunities to innovate and optimize. Because to really scale where we want to go, we didn't even touch upon metaverse, omniverse, all these verses coming out. That's going to be another leg in the stool of this data infrastructure world. And I'm just super excited that we have all the people, the assets from a technology and IP portfolio to really enable this future. And we're excited to work with people. So anyone who's listening here, please reach out and see how we can collaborate. I think that's the most exciting part, is we want to collaborate, right? We know this can't be done by one company, right? It has to be in an open manner.
Well, there you go. That's the last time I'm bringing you on the show. You didn't pay for a commercial. No, I'm just kidding. No, that's actually exactly how I was going to ask you to end this show and say, Nigel, where do you want people to go and learn more? And it sounds to me like the Marvell story is growing through collaboration. And if that's one of the key takeaways I had, paying attention, watching Investor Day, Analyst Day, and of course, listening to Matt Murphy's recent comments. And by the way, you can check out Matt's episode. He joined me on Making Markets as well, right here with Futurum. He really has been outspoken about the importance of collaboration up and down the technology ecosystem with so many providers. So many companies are building on Marvell. And in many cases, because you are sort of enterprise and you're the magic behind the magic, people don't always know that. And that's one of the things I always like to get out there. So Nigel, I want to thank you so much for joining me here on the Futurum Tech Webcast. You're a great guest. You had a ton of inputs there and info. I'm sure you rehearsed quite a bit, not for my show, but for an Analyst Day. So hopefully that made it easy for you to come on and chat to me.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Daniel. Greatly appreciate it.
All right. We look forward to having you back soon. I'm going to close up shop here. So, hey, everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. Nigel was a great guest. I hope you got a lot out of that, understanding the company a lot better. There's a lot going on at Marvell. I'll put some notes in the show notes about the Market Watch piece I wrote. We'll put some links to some of the stories out there, including Ron Westfall's piece on the Industry Analyst Day. And we hope you hit that subscribe button and join us again for this episode of the Futurum Tech Webcast. I got to say goodbye. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you later.